Hi, everyone, and welcome to Productive Habits Podcast. We are your hosts, Maria and Jamie, and I'm very happy to present to you our guest for today. It's Stephan Dyer, amazing, funniest comedian ever, entrepreneur, productivity guru, and whatnot. So, hi, Stephan, welcome.
Thank you guys. I could talk about this for 10 hours. I'm so happy that we're here together.
Yeah, we're very happy to have you here as well. Actually, me, Jamie, and Stephan, we go way back. We met like a couple of years ago because me and Jamie were Stephan's students at his comedy course, which is called Public Speaking Through Comedy at the comedy school, at Stephan's comedy school. And it was the best experience of our lives. We loved it. And we met a lot of people that way, and we are all still friends. So it's amazing. So let's get into it. The first thing that it's very impressive about Stephan is that up until correct me if I'm wrong, but you were up until you were like almost 30, you worked in finance. And so Stephan worked in finance and he had a very successful career. And then when he was around 30, he left his high-paying, amazing job at Scotiabank and to become a professional comedian. So just tell us about that. Like, how did you realize comedy was your passion, and how did you decide to pursue it?
So you're right. In 2017, April, it was 7 years since I was at Scotiabank Toronto, and it had become a really good journey for me because at age 23, I became a manager just out of university. I was 8 months an intern, and then they gave me a manager position. And then 3 or 4 years
Wow.
later, I became a senior manager, which was even more impressive because I was only like 26. Some of the
Yeah.
people that had my position, because we were four senior managers on the team, the other ones had like they were like 45 or 50 or 60 years old, and I was the golden boy of my family, you know. I was an immigrant. I was making money here. My whole family back in Costa Rica and Peru, they were like, "Oh my God, he's killing it." My grandparents were so were so proud of me, and it felt really good to be able to use my finance degree that my parents paid for. I went to U of T, and as some of you know, an international student pays double as
Yeah.
domestic students. So there was some pressure there, and even more success because I got my work permit, then my permanent residence. To those of you who are immigrants, you know that that's like winning the World Cup for immigrants. You just
Oh
get your
yeah.
permanent
Yeah.
residence. You're like, oh my God, finally I'm not getting deported ever. So, and then finally I became a citizen a couple years ago. But going back to the point, there was a couple of things where I was like, this is the time to take risks. So first of all, when people hear my story, they're like, oh my God, this guy woke up one day and then he was like, I want to become a comedian, and he just quit and threw everything away. I'd love for it to be that way. It would be more exciting. But years before I quit, I had started to do comedy in other ways that is not stand up. So in 2010, I started writing observations on Twitter, stuff that I found funny. In 2013, I started doing Vines, so putting my tweets on videos. Vine, for those of you who remember it, it's a 6 second app. It's like TikTok for old people, you know?
Yeah.
And then some of my videos went viral. And then 2014, 15, I started taking those vines into Instagram and Facebook, which allowed more than 6 seconds. It was 15 seconds at the beginning on Instagram, 1 minute. And then in 2014, one of my friends, he had a party, a Latino party called SWAT, and he had an open mic. And in that open mic, it was a Spanish open mic where you could do poetry, music, comedy, and he told me and Juan, my business partner, who you guys know because he's the co-founder of Malpensando, our school. Then they were like, "Do you guys want to do stand up?" And we had no idea, but we said, "Of course." So we went on. It sucked. The show sucked, but some people laughed, and we were instantly hooked. And then we started doing shows like every 1 or 2 months at the beginning until I took my first ever stand-up comedy workshop at the Second City in 2016, and that really opened it up because for 2 years I sucked huge because I was just going up there and saying stuff that I thought was funny.
Mm-hmm.
But as you know, because you took our course, there's premises, there's setup, there's punch, there's many things in speaking and in comedy. So as we started to improve through workshops, reading books, then in 2017, I was like, oh, Juan used to tell me after every show, as we got better, he's like, let's quit our job, man. Let's quit our job. Because Juan was also a senior manager at Scotiabank. So I'm like, are you kidding? Why? Like, this is insane. We're not gonna quit, man. Like, look at our families. Like, they've sacrificed so much for us,
Mm-hmm.
so that we can be here, study here. Like,
Yeah.
it would also be like a disservice to our immigrant friends who are like sometimes cleaning floors or still working at a coffee shop, and they were lawyers back home. We made it, you know. Why are we gonna throw this away? But something, and this is where I wanted to share. Like, there was a couple of things that I realized. I thought that when I had the money, so this hot lucrative paying job, I would be happy. And it turned out that it wasn't happening. I was like fat. I was having like holes in my beard of stress.
Mm-hmm.
I was playing less soccer. Even if I went on vacation to Costa Rica or whatever, I was thinking about work. I hated Sundays because tomorrow is Monday. And I'm like, something's not working here. You know, I thought I'd be happy when I had the money. Then another thing happened. I was like, I'm 29 years old. This is where I'm supposed to take the risk. Isn't this like why our parents sacrificed so much so that we could really chase our dreams? So I was like, I'm not married. I don't have any kids. I don't have a mortgage. This is the time to take the risk. Like, and then the final thing is we're in Canada. What's the worst thing that can happen? Like, literally, the worst thing. I always say this. Okay, I quit my job. What's the worst thing that can happen? The worst is I work at Tim Hortons.
Yeah.
That's incredible. That's
Yeah.
incredible.
That's so true.
It's insane how good this country is. Also, there's employment insurance. Like, I'll get paid for not working. It's insane. Obviously, there's a bunch of fears. I thought I was disappointed in my family. There's a bunch of other things, but bottom line, 4 years ago, this month, we quit our jobs, and then there's a whole nother struggle once you quit.
Yeah.
But it was probably the most crazy, fulfilling, humbling decision I've ever made.
That's a crazy story. And yeah, I can see now that it took you a long time to like gather up that courage and actually quit your job. So it didn't just happen overnight. You were like thinking about that decision for a while. And yeah, I can absolutely relate that about the worst thing that could happen as an immigrant. I always think about that. I'm like, oh my, okay, the worst case scenario, I'll go work at Starbucks. Okay.
Yeah, that's incredible.
I'll still be fine. I'll still be able to like get an apartment and whatever. So yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
and
I
also
love Canada.
I forgot to say this, but in 2012, which was a huge catalyst in my career, I joined Toastmasters, and that's where I actually found out that I was funny. I actually met Jamie at Toastmasters.
Yep.
And then Jamie joined our course, which is where he met you.
Yeah.
You know
Crazy.
how excited it gets me that group, like a lot of groups stick together, but your group, your level 1 and level 2, because you guys stuck together for level 2. Like, you guys are tight. Like, I'm so happy when I see you doing lunch or doing road trips and everything.
Thank you. It's because of you.
Yeah.
I'm so happy about that. But yeah, Toastmasters, definitely, it was a low stakes environment, very supportive. We're so lucky that our club is like 29 years old, we could say, and it's a very supportive environment. So you could really try anything and get instant feedback, and it was really where I found out and got better over the years.
Yeah,
I want to add, it's funny because we had another guest. His name was Stephan, also from Scotiabank, who is a senior manager as well. And it just seems like people with the name Stephan or Stefan and people from Scotiabank are just successful. It's crazy.
What's his last name?
Stephan Lee.
Okay, I don't
Yeah.
know.
No,
Well,
no,
maybe
he's
maybe he's
10
a
years
great guy.
older. He's 35. Well, actually, he's around your age, so you
Yeah,
might
I'm
have
33.
yeah, you might have worked with him. UFT as well, actually. A lot of parallels, crazy.
Now I have to meet him.
Yeah, no, he recently got his EMBA. We had him on the podcast, and he talks about like motivation and all that too. So, maybe I'll connect him with you one day.
Love it.
Yeah,
Yeah, also you've speaking of Toastmasters, you've recently become a distinguished
that's
Toastmaster,
crazy.
which for our listeners is a very, very cool thing and which very few people have. So congrats on that. That's amazing.
Thank you.
So basically to sum up, you were making a lot of money, but as it often happens, you didn't like the job. It was too stressful. You were always like sad on Sunday nights and stuff. So what was the last straw when you decided, okay, this is the day I'm quitting?
Very good question. So I'm gonna skip to now for 15 seconds because I don't like it, and I was that guy. But I found this over time through reading so many books on personal growth and productivity and life. I'm like, oh, the bank. It's the bank. It's the bank's fault.
Mm-hmm.
It's not me. I'm miserable because of the bank. So I thought that when I quit my job to do what I loved, I was going to be happy. But then I got to the conclusion that it was me all along. I was responsible. I let myself get to that dark place. So I'm happy that I got there because it led me to where I am. Maybe I would still be at the bank. You never know.
Mm-hmm.
But it's my responsibility. So when I quit, I was like, oh shit! Like we always find an excuse to become the victim because it's comfortable being the victim.
Yeah.
But you can't be the victim if you don't have an aggressor. So that's the bank. So, anyways, going back to the last straw, I remember December 2015. It's December 20. I'm at 50 John, where my girlfriend, now wife, and I used to live with our roommate, Enrique. And you're not going to believe this. I asked for my vacation 6 months before, and it was December 20, and it hadn't been approved. And I already had my ticket for like 2 days after. And like, well, we don't know if you're gonna be able to go. There's a lot of work, and I'm like, just like you can't do this. And it was like an incredibly stressful environment. I was like writing credits, business proposals at 3 a.m. You're sleeping, but you're still thinking of the job in your sleep. And through many years, the previous 5 years where I'd been at the bank, I had been really good at disconnecting. So 5 o'clock or 6 or 7, whenever I left, it was vacation for me. I was really good at disconnecting. I was either playing soccer, having drinks, partying, whatever, just going to the movies, not thinking about work. I was also very lucky that I never had a BlackBerry or a phone, like a work phone. And every time I went to Costa Rica or Peru or where my family is, no no thinking about work whatsoever. But that specific December 2015, I remember we went to Limon, which is the Caribbean coast of Costa Rica, and I had a miserable time at the beach with my family, and I even had nightmares of when I went back to work, like my boss or some of my team or whoever would um like kind of what's the word? Not revenge, but yeah, like they're gonna get back at me for leaving, or for leaving them work. So, and I was like, dude, this is it. This is it. I can't do this anymore, or at least not on this team. The thing that I'm so grateful about is that for some reason I never stopped doing comedy. Like I remember I used to do improv with Isaac, the other co-founder of Malpensando, and we used to rent this little room at the Second City when it was just at King and Peter, north on King and Peter, before it was south of King and Peter. And I always went there Friday afternoons. Eat like it didn't matter after work. It didn't matter how miserable I was. So I started getting better. I started getting better. So next year, 2016, as I started getting better, that's when the decision was made.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked my girlfriend, now wife, like, would you support me? And she was like, yeah. So it really helped that I was going to quit with someone, you know, so if we sucked, we sucked
Yeah.
together, because doing it by yourself is a little more daunting.
That's amazing. That's actually like that ability to disconnect. That's amazing because like I've been there. I was this person working like 12-hour days and stuff, and it took me a while to and a lot of work and it's a lot of effort to teach yourself to just like let go and disconnect. And even now, like I talk to my friends and they're like, "Yeah, I'm just working all day. What else would I be doing?" And it makes me so sad to hear that because a lot of people just identify with their job and they're like, I am my job. And like, okay, like my boss asked me to work on the weekend. So what else would I be doing? It makes me so sad. And yeah, it's like, it's so strange to hear you that way because we only know you like in this happy place. We
Yeah.
didn't know you before when you were like miserable at your job. So I think your story is
Yeah.
very inspiring. And could you my last question about in this section is that how did it affect your relationship? So you said your girlfriend and now wife, like she supported you, but did it affect your relationship in any way?
I don't think it did. She also worked, actually, she worked at Scotiabank sometimes. Now, it didn't affect where we were going to break up or anything, but it did affect my side where I wasn't enjoying it as much because I wasn't present. I was there, but I wasn't there. I was thinking about
Mm-hmm.
work. And throughout, like even when we started, um, it, I was there. I wasn't miserable. I was having a great time at the bank. I I loved my team, and then it started getting extremely, like, everything was urgent. Everything was life or death, and I let myself get to that place. Now that I look back, I think if I were to go back, I would do it a little better. But I guess, that's life, and it didn't really affect our relationship, but it definitely affected that I wasn't as present. But we were still really really good, and she supported me throughout it. And the thing is, like, my wife also met me at a show. The only difference was that she met me at a show, and I was always had so many things on my plate that I loved, like soccer, comedy, improv, like going to places, like going to dinner, going for beers. So I was always like kind of busy, and that's how she met me, and it really hasn't changed. Now the whole difference is when we talk about productivity, that that it's also about freeing up time for what matters. So now for me, and historically as well, having time for my wife and my son is a big part of what I love to do. So I prioritize it in many ways.
Yeah, that's amazing that it didn't change your relationship because like I talked to a lot of people about that and I feel like there was this pressure especially like on men. I don't know if I sound sexist right now, but like men feel this pressure to provide and make a lot of
Yeah.
money. And I think it could be hard to find a partner that will support you through that and like that will just
Oh,
accept the fact that like for a couple of years we're not going to have any money and
oh,
but
oh, post. Oh, for sure, for sure. I thought you meant during when I was having a horrible time. So yeah, for sure it did. It kind of fucked me up because
yeah.
it's still like only now am I 4 years after am I making the same amount of money that I made
Mm-hmm.
at the bank?
Oh wow.
Starting to like
Yeah.
projecting this year, projected like, but so what I did, because I didn't want to be a burden, was that because the other thing I didn't mention was that I had a lot of savings. So
Mm-hmm.
when I knew that I was gonna quit, I saved. I still had a bunch of savings, but I quit. I saved even more, and I told her, like, I don't want to be a burden, so let's split everything half and half. She had a job,
Mm-hmm.
and then if I couldn't make my half because my income actually decreased like 80% in the first
Mm-hmm.
year, then I would just use my savings, which we did.
Mm-hmm.
But over the last year or two, it's definitely been. mm, it really has nagged me, and where I'm like comparing myself to my dad who had a lot of money, because I just became a dad a year ago.
Yeah.
So my dad had a lot of money at a certain time, so he sent me to boarding school in Quebec. He sent me to paid for my university, and it's really kind of fucked me up where I'm like, fuck, will I have that money to
Yeah.
be able to give my son the opportunities that I had, you know? And then I'm like, was it the right decision? And I'm like, dude, I'm 33. Calm down, you know? Like let's see when I'm 45. Now I'm so happy that, as I was telling you behind the scenes, we hired a business coach, and now finally we've really started to capitalize on our business.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was just a couple of friends doing their best before, like a couple of talented guys trying to do what they can with what they have. But now that you have a business person, an actual successful business guy, business coach, now it's actually a business. Before it was like having soup with a fork. That's what it
Yeah.
was.
So the
I mean, that
business
makes sense.
coach kind of legitimized your whole process here, right? Almost in a sense, it gave it almost like credibility to what you were doing.
Yeah, yeah. So the way I explain it is the E-Myth. Have you guys read the E-Myth book?
No,
Okay,
that's not bad.
I'm gonna spoil it for you guys. No, I'm kidding.
Let's go.
It's
Do
just
it. I don't mind.
it's just two main premises.
Okay.
So the E-Myth is the entrepreneurial myth that where people assume that because they can do the technical job, they should start a business that does the technical job. So because you can bake pies, that you should start a bakery.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a whole nother skill set. Just because you can make people laugh doesn't mean you should start a comedy school.
Right.
Yeah.
Or just because you can bake pies doesn't mean you should start a bakery, because the skill set is very different. There's three parts. It's the technical side, which is the baking the cake or whatever. Then there's the managerial side, which is running the business, and then there's the entrepreneurial side, which is like towards the future, you know? So this is where the coach comes in. Like, we're really good with the technical side of the things. Maybe we're really good at entrepreneurial, like looking towards the future, but we're not very good at managing, and we're definitely undercharging at every single, like, we were losing money for like the last 4 years, but we loved it, and that's why we're still here. You know, I guess that's the secret to being successful. You kind of gotta love it. And the other sentence of the book that summarizes it is that instead of working in your business, you should work on your business. And that's that. So that's what's made the huge difference now.
Yeah, I think that's a huge problem for like entrepreneurs who are just starting, that they are sort of ashamed to ask for money, and they're
Yeah.
always undercharging. I hear that from a lot of people, and I think
Yeah.
that's partly like an imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's definitely like a big problem. So yeah, just before we move to the actionable part, the actionable section, I just want to like emphasize one thing that you said that I really liked, that you don't like, you actually take responsibility for getting to that place where you let your job get to you and get miserable. And I think that's very important, because people are like, some people blame the circumstances or other people, but in reality, like, you shouldn't do that. Like, my example, for example, for months, like last year, like I was very, very unhappy with the amount of money I'm making, but I didn't do anything about it. And one day I was complaining to my work friends and whatever, but I never talked to my manager. And when I finally did it, I was like so angry, and I was like, okay, like if she's not gonna raise my salary, like I'm just gonna quit, that's it. And she talks to me, and she's like, I actually had no idea this is how much you're making. This is ridiculous. Of course I'm giving you a raise. It just slipped my mind that you weren't like on the roster for like for a raise. I don't know why. Like, of course, get the fucking raise. You're amazing. And I let myself get to that place. I was so
Yeah.
angry. So I think that's the first tip that you're giving our listeners is that take responsibility. And when you want things to happen for yourself, just ask for them, and like make them happen, because most of the time it works. So just don't get yourself get to that place.
Yeah.
And so now, what would you say to our listeners who considering quitting their job but they cannot find courage? So maybe like how do you know that your passion is worth pursuing rather than it's just a hobby? Like, how do they know?
Oof, such a great question. Well, the first thing I can tell you is that everybody in the world, especially if you're going to take tough decisions or you're having a rough time, should take the best personal growth course that I've ever taken. It's called Landmark, the Landmark Forum.
Ooh.
It's in Toronto. I did it in person, but now you can do it online everywhere in the world. Like previously, you used to physically have to be in Toronto or New York or Mexico City or Moscow or like bigger cities, you know.
Mhm.
But now, because of COVID, you can do it online from anywhere in the world, and that really opened up my brain and to take responsibility. And one of the main points is that what Maria was saying is that it's so comfortable to blame anyone, you know, because I'm never wrong. Of course I'm not wrong, because if I'm wrong, then I have to stare at the mirror and live with it. So it's easier to blame the other person. So one you have to take the course, but one of the things that I love about the course is that I'm with my hands, I'm drawing two circles. Okay, there's two circles, and this is the facts, like what happened. Okay, these are the facts in this circle, and this other circle is the story you're telling yourself about what happened. So when you can't differentiate, when you can't tell apart the facts from the story you're telling yourself, and these two collide because you can't tell them apart, that's when pain happens. So in Maria's example, so you're like, okay, what are the facts? You have a wage that is under market. Okay, yeah, you have a wage that's under market. What is the story you're telling yourself? This fucking boss of mine, I'm gonna kill her. This is bullshit. This company's the worst in the world. They hate me. They're taking advantage of me. This sucks. My life sucks. Blah blah blah. But what is going on? But but what happened is just your wage is under market. That's all that happened. Another example. Your parents got divorced and your dad moved. Those are the facts. Like your dad moved and your parents got divorced. What story are you going to tell yourself? Some people, including myself, I guess, or like my brothers, or like anyone who's had a divorce and their parents moved. My dad abandoned me. No, your dad moved. And it's so comfortable to tell yourself that story because you're the victim. So my first advice is take Landmark. The second one is just set a deadline and then act upon it. So I said I'm gonna quit in 6 months. Why in 6 months? Because that was the exact date that I needed to have enough days to be able to apply for my Canadian citizenship. So I still wanted to have a job, even though it wasn't required, but I wanted to have a job. So say I'm gonna quit October 1st, and that's it. That's the hard deadline. Now what are you gonna do? Start saving up. What I did is start saving up, move to a smaller place, not eat out, not drink, not it was like, oh, you really want this? Okay, let's see if you really want this. It was tough because you don't even realize it. You start to hang out with people that can spend the same amount of money as you. So like my friends before would be like, hey, let's go to our friend's wedding in Dubai. Yeah, no, let's stop by Amsterdam. Let's party. Let's go to Las Vegas. Let's go to Las Vegas. Like anybody would propose a plan, I'd be like, let's go. It wasn't. And then when you have to say no, it kind of hits your ego. So make that decision, start to save up. And the other thing is that you don't have to quit. You can start to make some money on the side, take courses, read books, and then quit in about 2 years. Like it's not like you quit or you don't quit. Like, you can still do what you love and learn and then decide if you quit. And that's what I did. Like, I was learning for years before I decided to quit. And when I quit, I was already making some money on the side from my passion. So once you start making money, I think you're in a good position to, yeah, to potentially quit. But the grass is always greener on the other side. I'll tell you that much. So that's why when I quit, I was like, I'm not the funniest. I don't have the most experience. There's a bunch of other people who, on paper, are more likely or would have been more likely to be successful doing comedy full time, and they failed. So I was like, I can't do that. I don't want to fail. So that's when my personal growth journey started. And I'm like, I'm going to study obsessively high performers, people who have achieved incredible things in life. I started reading all kinds of personal growth books. I started eating better, exercise, meditation, all the things that you know you should do, but you still don't. And I didn't even know that I should do them, but then I realized like all these high performers are doing, all these incredible people are doing them. And the thing is, it's all about consistency. Like, I don't want to be doing this for 1 year because I was like doing cocaine every night and partying. You could be the funniest person in the world, and you're still not going to have that durability to be able to do it in 40 years if you don't have the habits, the positive habits to be able to get to 40 years. So it's a combination of many things, but Landmark will get it started for you. That's for sure.
Okay, cool.
I really like one thing I want to add. You mentioned like how you hang around with people that eat out a lot. And there's a saying, you know, I forget, correct me if I'm wrong. If you hang out with 5 idiots, you're the 6th one. So,
yeah, you're the average of the 5 closest people to you. Yes.
Yeah, right. So you want to surround yourself with, you know, people that you know, you want to strive to be like, right? So I guess taking that Landmark course, I'm not even too sure what it's really about. I'm guessing it's in person. It does sound really intriguing. How long was that, on a side note here?
Oh, in person, it's very similar online. It was full day Friday, full day Saturday, full day Sunday, and Tuesday night. It was like $750. And then I did the advanced course, which was like 500, I think, or 600. And then I just did the level 3, which was 250. And it's about a community project for your community, I guess.
It's so cool. I'm going to check that out. It's really interesting.
Yeah. If you go in there, you're going to think, oh my God, this is like the most crazy Christian evangelical church mixed with Herbalife. And some people will tell you, no, this is a cult. This is a cult. But I'm telling you, they're legit.
Okay.
I have a lot of people that I respect that are like incredible human beings, performers, achievers that have done. Actually, my roommate, who's like still one of my best friends, he used to recommend it to all his ex-girlfriends. So
That's funny.
I thought that it was for like when you were in crisis, but then another friend, Carlito, he recommended it to me. He's like a great guy, and I'm like, oh wow. I went to the guest one. You could go as a guest, and I'm like, these people are like a different breed. I'm like, it's impossible that they're paying all these people to give these testimonials. And I'm like, and I really believe my friend because he's really close to me. I'm like, this guy can't be bought, you know? And I'm like, this is legit. And then I did actually, Huang and I did it together, the level 1, level 2, and Huang was going through his divorce. And so he was in crisis mode a little bit, and I wasn't. And it was still, but for both of us, the most transformational experience.
Yeah, that's a great advice. Okay, I'm definitely gonna check that out. And I just want to like again emphasize that I really liked your advice about setting a deadline, because I think once you set the deadline and you start saving and you start like denying yourself all these things that you love, that's a great test of how much you want to pursue your passion, if it's worth it or not. If you like give up in the process and you're like, no, I can't do this, I'd rather have like the shitty job, I guess it's like you're not ready yet, maybe. or you just need more time, or it's just not that big of a passion that's worth pursuing. I think it's a great
Yeah.
test.
It has to hurt, it has
Yeah.
to. I don't mean like making the decision of quitting. Yeah, that'll hurt too, but I mean staying has to
Mhm.
suck.
Yeah.
Like, if I don't know if it's my immigrant background where uncertainty kind of drives me, and uncertainty has been like everywhere in my life,
Mhm.
but I couldn't stand the fact of staying there and having to look at myself in the mirror and being like, what if
Yeah.
I had quit?
Oh, that's the
Or
worst.
I guess
waking
like
up when I was 70 and being like, what if,
I guess like the thought of staying has to hurt more than the fear of quitting.
Yeah.
And it kind of goes back to the earlier point. Just take the risk. What's the worst thing that could happen, right? You mentioned be a McDonald's worker, Tim Hortons worker. I think
That's
a lot of people,
incredible.
it's 14.25. That's not bad. That's not bad.
You're very informed about it.
But the thing is, I think a lot of people, they just have, they really play into their mind. It's like, oh, what if I fail? I have to work at McDonald's. What are people going to think of me? And so that's one barrier where people just don't take that risk. And
Yeah, the what will they say was definitely
that's huge, especially for like an immigrant,
yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, that makes your story even more impressive. And so yeah, that's very, very amazing that you did that. And you sort of already started talking about productivity, and that's a nice transition into the other section of this podcast. That was it for today. Thank you for listening, and tune in next week for part 2, where we continue talking to Stephan. We're going to be talking about productivity, some life hacks that are going to help you be more disciplined, and Stephan is going to share some advanced tips of his. See you next week.